scene here. So we're excited to be having this debate. So what makes America great is a differing opinion. And just to introduce our candidates here tonight, the way we're going to set up our scene here is we're going to have the current political situation. So we've got President Barack Obama as the current president, and Donald J. Trump as the president-elect. And what we're going to be setting these two up as they're going to be running for president of the United States. So it's kind of a mock thing here, but they'll be running for president of the United States. So to introduce our candidates, it's Mr. Chandler, representing the Republicans, and Mr. Devin, representing the Democratic side of it.
I'm not a Democrat.
Independent?
Independent, yeah.
Independent, okay. Okay, question one. There's been tragedy in Syria, specifically Aleppo, where the rebels have destroyed that city and inhumanity has taken place. So our first question there is a question of mercy. How can we help? Let's start with Mr. Devin.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here in Rockefeller Plaza. What is Aleppo? I'm just kidding. But okay, so definitely it's a humanitarian crisis that I think the whole world is affected by it. Obviously, it can't rest fully on the American shoulders to take in all the refugees. And we've already seen refugees who come unvetted into European states who later down the line, and it's a very small minority, commit atrocities that kind of scars the entire name of the refugee crisis. However, I'm one that we need to open more doors for the refugees, but they should be vetted, and we should examine them to the fullest before we let them into our country. But again, it should be an entire human thing. It's not just the Americans' problems. It's definitely not the European problems as well.
Thank you, Mr. Devin.
Thank you.
Okay, actually,
Mr. Chandler, do you have a response to the same question to you?
I actually agree with Devin. We can let the refugees in. We just have to go through extreme vetting, like what Trump said. And yeah, that's basically what he's saying. Do you support extreme vetting or just vetting?
Vetting.
Extreme vetting.
Can you
tell
us what the difference is?
Yeah, where would you draw the line?
Was it a 1 year? I'll have to have these people fact check. It's a 1 year process where they live for 1 year and they find out who they are. That's the extreme vetting, right? I'll let these people. I guess the comments are way behind, so we'll have to wait. But yeah, I think they live in a place for a year and then they find out who they are and if they're safe. So we're kind of agree on that one.
So, similar views on that point. Next question also deal with foreign policy. Should we get involved with the Middle East, specifically Benjamin Netanyahu and the problems in Israel? And if we get involved or don't get involved, how can we continue to have him as an ally? Mr. Chandler, I'll have you go first.
I support Israel. I think they're a great investment because of the technology that comes out there. They're great. It's a great place for entrepreneurs to go. And go look at the list of all the technology coming out of Israel. And I think we need to support them a lot more, and I think Trump's going to do that because him and Benjamin Netanyahu get along a lot better than Obama and not Netanyahu. And Obama's shown no support at all for Netanyahu, and I think our countries are going to have a lot better relationship after Trump gets in.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Mr. Devin, your response.
So I definitely still agree that Israel is a powerful ally, especially in the Middle East. However, what they've done to the Palestinians, and again I'm looking at this through a humanitarian lens, is that it's more of an occupying force and it's illegal in my viewpoint. Where obviously Israel is allowed to exist, no one's debating that. However, where they're existing is a problem to me, especially when they throw Palestinians into prisons for just speaking their minds. Obviously there's some terrorist organizations who want to undermine the Israeli authority there. But it should be a two distinct states between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And I think the Palestinians are being undermined politically and economically through Israelis' encroachment of their territory mainly. And I think the Palestinians as a people is one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century, to be honest with you, where we have a settled people in a region who are then pushed aside into separate regions and then divided. The land is divided amongst the Israelis and then the Palestinians, and then eventually the Israelis come to take over full force. However, I'm not saying that I'm anti-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. I believe both should exist and that we should be allies with the Israelis, but there definitely needs to be some sort of standard and some sort of barrier before we just give up our alliance with Israel, especially if they're undermining humanitarian rights to the Palestinians.
So just to clarify, would you still be an ally with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yeah, of course. We want to make deals with any sort of foreign leader, especially if it progresses into a more humanitarian and more peaceful regime. Obviously, I want to see that with any sort of leader.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, moving to
Two hardest questions first.
Yeah, hard question first. Now moving to domestic issues.
Do we need a time limit?
We do. We better go 30 seconds on the time limit.
How long did I go on that one?
Please.
Okay, sorry. I should have announced that in the rules. Okay, so 30-second time limit for your response. So back to Mr. Devon. One of the most prominent disagreements lately is the right to bear arms. It's in the Constitution, and I'd like to know specifically your how you go about if you would go about to change that part of the Constitution, the right to bear arms. Mr. Devon, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Holy crap. Obviously, I think everybody has the right to bear arms. If you're mentally unstable or if you've committed vicious criminal acts, you shouldn't be allowed to bear arms. Again, I'm not a huge SJW liberal on this issue. I definitely believe that law-abiding citizens should have the right to bear arms if they so believe it. And like Bernie Sanders, who I'm repping, there is definitely a huge difference in
10 seconds.
rural guns and urban guns, where obviously guns can be used for hunting and obviously the others can be used for crime. I'm not one for huge gun control. Obviously, I'm against banning all assault rifles except concealed weapons. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chandler, same question. 30 seconds.
I actually agree with Devin again on this one, but Trump's plan for the Second Amendment is if you have a mental disease or if you're a former criminal, you have a lot harder time to buy a gun, but the right to bear arms should never be taken away by anybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. This reminds me a little bit back of the debate between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. A lot of agreeing here, so I think that's a good thing.
It's not bad.
Okay, two more questions here. Number 3, President-elect Donald Trump has just indicated that there's a possibility of an arms race with Russia. Mr. Chandler, 30 seconds to give your opinion on Mr. Trump's opinion about the arms race. Go.
So it seems like everybody's flexing their muscles with their nukes right now. I don't think that's the right way necessarily with nuclear bombs, but we should build up our troops. He wanted a strong military, and I don't think nuclear weapons are the way to do it. If you just keep building up your nuclear weapons, that button's going to get a lot easier to push, and from either side, so I don't think that's the right way to go. Just build up the troops and not nuclear bombs.
Thank you. Mr. Devon.
The Cold War has ended. I don't believe we should still be in this sort of arms race that will never seem to end, especially against Russia, who's always been our biggest enemy.